Hello, this is a makeup recording for the lecture that was missed on September 21st, and the topic will be Photoshop. So in the previous lecture presentation, we covered how to use the crop tool and the resize tool to resize and crop your images, and we did a little bit of work with the magic wand tool to select out backgrounds. What I want to focus on in this presentation are all the selection tools here in the toolbar, the Photoshop toolbar, namely the rectangular marquee tool, the elliptical marquee tool, the lasso tool, and the polygonal lasso tool and the magnetic lasso tool. So we're going to use these tools along with the modifiers up here at the top. So I think the first thing you want to do when selecting anything in Photoshop is to zoom in to the appropriate level. So we're going to remove the giraffe here, and we're going to do it in several different ways. So I'm going to zoom in, and you'll notice that when you zoom in to a certain degree, it becomes hard to kind of manipulate the rest of the image. So use the hand tool over here to kind of move your workspace around so that you can see what you're doing. So we're going to use, for this job, we're going to use first the lasso tool. So the lasso tool just basically captures pixels. So what you want to do is very, very roughly outline the giraffe. And it's okay if you miss a little bit or you have a little bit that's off. You'll notice that when you get here, you can't really do anything. So you have to let go of the lasso tool, and then you have to take the hand tool and move it down. So that's where the modifiers come in up here. If you click on the lasso tool, there are modifiers up here for adding to the selection and subtracting to the selection. You can also use the Shift key and the Alt key to do the same thing. Notice that when I click on the Add to Selection, I get a little plus sign right here. So the way this works is that you'll start in an area that's selected, and you'll continue moving down and like this around the giraffe. And notice that all this is now selected, and you take your hand tool and you just continue adding using the lasso tool to that selection. And you keep going. I'm not too worried that I'm a little bit off here. Notice that you can zoom in. And notice that I've over selected this area. So then you use the other modifier, the subtract from selection here. Click on this tool, and then notice you get a negative sign next to the lasso. So what you're going to do is you're going to just go into the area that you want to deselect, and then stop anywhere out here. This is not selected, so anywhere you stop out here, it doesn't matter. And you notice that I got much closer to the edge of the giraffe. And you can also zoom in and get this as perfect as you want. Notice that you can still remove this here. I still have my remove modifier on, and you can go in here and continue outlining perfectly the giraffe. Now this one is not an ideal situation for this tool because there's hair here, and that's going to make it really hard. So I'll show you another way to do this. But that's the general idea, is you would come in here. Remember to use the magnifying glass, zoom in and zoom out. I'm holding down the Alt key to zoom out, and I'm letting go to zoom in. So between the magnifying glass and the hand tool, you can come in here and you can select just the giraffe. I have another image here that probably is a little bit more appropriate. Maybe this pillow down here. Let's say that we wanted to select this pillow so that we could remove it. Okay, same idea. Take the lasso tool and use this modifier, the first one, just to select it, and very roughly outline the pillow like so. And then you'll zoom in and fine-tune the selection using the modifier. So I've over-selected, so I'll use the remove selection. You know that you've got the right tool when you can see the negative button, the negative icon there. So I'm going to come in here and very carefully remove those extra pixels. And remember, you can zoom in to get it pretty much pixel perfect, just like this. And sorry about my cat. My cat wants to learn Photoshop too. And that's really all there is to it with the lasso tool. It just takes a lot of patience, and then you got to use in conjunction with the hand tool and the magnifying glass tool. But you notice that if you have enough time, you can select anything with this tool using the two modifiers. So there's the negative, meaning subtract from the selection. I need to add to that selection, so I'm going to click the other modifier and just go through here. And notice that I just end up anywhere here that is selected. Okay, so you're going to end up, when you're adding to selection, you'll end up in the selection. When you're removing selection, you'll end up outside of the selection. Now, once you have done a pretty good job, maybe you're not all the way done, but you're pretty close to being done, you want to go up here to select, and you want to save the selection right here and call it pillow, for example. And the reason you want to do that is, let's say that you have to go, maybe you've worked on this 20 minutes or so and you have to go eat lunch, you got to work on another project, and you close Photoshop, or you accidentally click on the lasso tool and you deselect everything by mistake. That's okay. You go up here to select, load selection. And you can do this as many times as you want. So you could have a whole bunch of selections here. Pillow 1, Pillow 2, Pillow 3. Click OK. And notice that my selection is back. So between those tools, you can pretty much select anything. Now, there are some specialty tools that you'll find, like the magic wand. Probably the magic wand will do a better job here if we just click on it. Notice that it already does most of it. And so you can also use these tools in conjunction. I can come in here and notice that these little islands here are areas that are not selected. There's pixels there that are outside of my range that I chose. So, but I can use the add to selection tool, or hold down the shift key and just circle this, and notice that now everything is selected, and I can come in here and add this selection back. So really what you're doing is you're using a variety of tools in combination for most jobs. And likewise here, this stuff is all not selected. I probably should raise the tolerance on that magic wand so I don't have to come back here and do any cleanup. Okay, if you double click the magnifying glass, it brings it out to 100%. You can see that this is a very large image. If I hold down the Alt key, I can zoom out. Okay, so there is the outline of the background. Notice that the pillow is not selected. So another trick you can do is you can come up here and do select inverse selection. And now all this is selected. So notice that the pillow is perfectly selected. So I take the lasso tool and I remove selection. And this time I want to remove all this stuff here. All this stuff. Okay? So you can see that now, because I inversed the selection, I need to remove all this stuff. So I'm going to circle it. And now I'm going to circle this. And you can see that I'm really close to getting just the pillow using the magnifying glass, the magic wand tool, and the modifier for the lasso tool. And now it's really close to getting everything selected on that pillow. So that's how you do it. There's also, I'm going to go ahead and save this selection since it's a really good selection. I'll call it Pillow 2. And I would encourage you to go to Unsplash, get some images, try different techniques. It's fun to do. This is something that takes practice. But there are other tools you could use. So let's deselect this and do it again using the modifiers here. Let's do the magnetic lasso tool. And let's zoom in. And what this does is kind of like creates like a magnet that sticks. You kind of go the edge of the pillow and it kind of sticks to it. This works well when there's good contrast between the images, and then you double click to select it. Okay, now you can see that there's some mistakes here. That's okay. I usually go real fast and then I clean it up with the lasso tool, because that's really an easy one. So I'll deselect this part here that was a mistake, and I'll click on the modifier and add this back like so. Okay, so that's a pretty good tool. You can, if you get shapes, you can also do the polygonal lasso tool. So I'm going to deselect this and demonstrate this tool, the polygonal. So what this does is you can kind of click on lines and make a polygon. So if you've got straight edges, you can kind of click rather than dragging, you just click. Like down here, this is a perfect use of the polygonal lasso tool because I'm just clicking on the edges. See that? And I'm creating a polygon. And then again, you can later on polish up the polygon. And oops, I made a mistake in that I double clicked, and I think I need to single click. That's okay. I'll just very quickly show you that again. I think when you get to the end here, it's a little tricky. You need to click. Yeah, I double clicked. You just single click. And then now notice it creates the matching ants, and now you have a selection there. All right, so let's go to this one. And you'll notice that with all this hair of the giraffe, it's really hard to get, to outline all that. So there's another way to do this. Let's say that rather than cutting out the giraffe, I just want to remove it. Okay? I don't want the giraffe in there. So rather than cutting it out, let's use the clone tool. So I'm going to go to select, deselect. And this one is a little tricky. It's really fun, but it's a little tricky. It takes some practice. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone this tree over, and I'm going to clone the bushes so that the giraffe just disappears. The clone tool is this one. And the way that it works is you probably want to zoom in pretty tight on this one. Okay, and with the clone tool selected, you'll hold down the Alt key and notice if there's a target. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sample this part of the tree. Oh, by the way, you need to make a big brush here. You need to do the brush about the size of the object, of the subject that you're repainting. So this is a pretty big image. I should probably shrink it down first using the skills that I taught you in the other lecture. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key, sample here, and paint right over the giraffe. Notice that I keep sampling. I think I need a smaller brush. This definitely takes some practice. Okay, and I'm going to sample here, and down here I'm going to sample that and just kind of paint my way up, and notice that I'm removing. Over here I'm going to sample the trees, and again, be careful not to overdo it. I'm kind of in a rush here. I think maybe a better place to start actually is over here, right? Let's zoom out one level. Take my hand tool and take the stamp tool, and I want to sample over here. I can probably use a bigger brush for this. That's probably too big. And I'm going to sample here and just paint my way up. You'll notice that there's a little X there. So if you notice, if you get too far in, you're just resampling the giraffe. So you don't want that. So you want to sample, like let's sample this tree here, and let's continue the tree down like that, and so that you're not going to notice that the giraffe was there, because I'm basically putting the tree in there. And now let's make up my brush bigger even and sample this greenery, and I'm clicking over here, and notice that it's replacing the giraffe with the bushes. It works really well with bushes and stuff that doesn't have a pattern to it, right? So you can see that I can also zoom in here and really get close to, again, using the hand tool. And I'm going to make my brush smaller because I've zoomed in, and really go in and fine tune this area right here. So notice that I'm sampling this area and I'm removing the giraffe. Being careful to leave my tree trunk there. It works really well with bushes and stuff that doesn't have a real pattern to it. But you can see that if I continue, the giraffe will just disappear. So that's another way to select pixels and remove them, is the clone tool. really, and it does really good job of cloning grass, for example. Let's say that I wanted to clone this bush here and move it over there more. It's really good at that. So I'll click on the clone tool, and let's go with a really big brush, and even bigger than that, I think. And I'm going to sample my bush and go over here and notice that I don't want to sample it perfectly because you don't want patterns. So I'm kind of clicking and sampling here, but notice that bush now looks like it's grown over here and it's very natural looking. Okay, so I'd like you to practice these skills. You're going to need them when you do your video. If you want to remove things from a picture, if you want to put your picture, take yourself out of a picture, put yourself in another picture, this is how you do it. Or if you wanted to remove something, let's say that you love the picture, but you don't want that little figure in the corner, you can either select it with the lasso tool or you can clone over it. All right, so have fun, and please let me know if you have any questions. We will not cover this in class. We're going to go into Illustrator for the next lecture. So please watch this and follow along maybe with a couple images and bring any questions you have to class on Thursdays.